I got a friend named Alexis, look like a Buick.
Pat, Lori, Shelley, Aaliyah, Rose, Brian, Darren, and...
Epiphany isn't just a name that black people give their daughters. It's a realization, and I just had one.
D-Nice.
Do you mean Denise?
Son of a bitch! You say your name right now.
Denise?
Say it right.
Denise.
Correctly.
Denise.
Right.
Denise.
Right.
D-Nice.
That's better. Thank you.
We can't pronounce her name, but we can tell you it has over 1,000 letters. We had to create a special graphic for her name. Take a look. That is her name. That makes Letitia LaShawn look simple. Letitia LaShawn Shante. Her birth certificate is 2 feet long. She has the longest personal name in the world, according to the Guinness Book of World.
When I say Keisha and when I say Hannah, what pops up in your head? How many black girls named Molly or Becky do you personally know? What about Deja or Kiara? During the colonial era, classical names like Virgil, Hannibal, Titus, Hercules, Phoebe, Venus, and Daphne were given to the enslaved. Classical names could show off slaveholders' learning while also mocking those humans held as property by giving them ironic names of powerful ancient rulers, gods, and heroes. Venus was an especially popular name bestowed on black women and stemmed from a word meaning physical desire and sexual appetite. It was also, of course, the name for the Roman goddess of love and her Greek equivalent, Aphrodite. According to cultural anthropologist Sarah Abel, this reflected and licensed the lasciviousness of European slave owners towards African women, making such behavior sound agreeable. This late 18th century engraving, The Voyage of the Sable Venus from Angola to the West Indies by William Granger, depicts the fetishization of black women during the Middle Passage. Here's a side-by-side to the Botticelli Venus. As black people won their freedom with blood, sweat, and tears by running away and becoming abolitionists, many changed their names to break away from their enslavers. Araminta Ross, referred to as Minty in runaway notices, became Harriet Tubman, taking the last name of her husband John during a time when enslaved marriages weren't recognized. Isabella Baumfree became Sojourner Truth. Sociologist Newbell Niles Puckett, author of Folk Beliefs of the Southern Negro, collected thousands of distinct black names from 1619 to the 1940s and 1975's posthumous Black Names in America. With a name like Newbell Niles Puckett, he was destined for the job, and he even created a list of unique names. Let me read some of my favorite girl names from the list. Some are familiar favorites, and some we may need to bring back. Alexina, Allegra, Angel Face, Asia, Banana, Beauty, Beauty Love, Beautiful Swindler, Beauty Marcel, Beauty Pearl, Blondie, Cinderella, Charlesetta, who I just know her daddy's name was Charles and her mama's name was Loretta. Choice, Cleopatra and Cleopatria, Doll Baby, Easter Bell, Elvira, Alexinia, Felicia, Future, Immaculate Conception, Ice Cream Babbitt, Hermione, Jetty. Jetty is like my favorite off that list. Jetty, come do these damn dishes. Jetty, bring me the remote. Hey Jetty, is we going outside this weekend? La Pearl, Lexi, Madonna, Pinky, a bunch of variations of Queen, and the list goes on. Surprisingly, Hannah was listed with 32 entries, making it far more popular than other names on the list. Make sure you check out the full list at the link in my description box and choose your favorite. Let me know in the comments. But in the 60s and 70s, lots of black people in the wake of Afrocentrism and the civil rights and black power movements were changing their names. Black Panther and future best-selling musician Yvette Marie Stevens became Shaka when she was 13, after the name was bestowed upon her by a Yoruba priest. The slew of name changes among 1960s celebrities, activists, and intellectuals caused given names to change. Prior to this period, naming pattern differences between white and black people were small, around the aforementioned 3%. By 1977, the average black female got a name that was 20 times more likely to be given to black girls than white ones. Popular ones included Aaliyah, Asada, and Afeni Afeni. A North Carolina native and Black Panther named Alice Williams became Afeni Shakur, and in 1972 she changed her 1-year-old's name from Lesane Parish Crooks to Tupac Amaru Shakur, after an 18th century indigenous Incan leader who led the 1780 rebellion against the Spanish in Peru. Afeni would later say about the new name of the future best-selling rapper, "I wanted him to have the name of revolutionary indigenous people in the world. I wanted him to know he was part of a world culture and not just from a neighborhood." Names with La, like LaShonda and LaKeisha, became common from this period too. In the early 90s, there was news coverage on unique Black names as the Shah prefix became popular with names like Shamika and Shaniqua. The name Shanae conjured up images of Martin Lawrence in drag.
Little girl, just go home and change your pampers, okay?
Little girl, look, don't get hurt by this little girl, okay?
No, you didn't.
Yes,
No,
I
you,
did.
bitch, don't you put your hand in my face. You don't put your hand in my face. I will hurt you, okay? I will hurt you. So what you trying to do?
Complained a Florida college professor to the Tampa Bay Times in 1993. It's a class thing. The middle class doesn't have a need to bless their child with such names. Younger teenage girls are trying to make their child unique. She wants her to be unique, so she gives her a name the child can't spell until she's 13 and nobody can pronounce. Agree to columnists, they are prevalent in the ghetto. If giving yourself an African-sounding name is supposed to inspire pride, we certainly know enough Black kids with exotic-sounding names who are part of the crime statistics. I think that I can overcome the stereotype of a name if you get to know me, but we are not always given a fair shot. A Muslim name after the bombing of the World Trade Center is certainly not a plus. Warned University of Florida's Black Studies Director Dr. William Simmons, Blacks will go further back with those kinds of names. There was a small bump in the amount of Black people choosing distinctly white names in the late 1990s and 2000s. But creative names, particularly for Black girls, was and is a continuing trend. In 2004, Roland G. Fryer and Stephen D. Levitt found that in California alone, nearly 1/3 of African American girls were given a name given to nobody else in the state. They found that having a creative name was only more likely to make a Black woman give her own children creative names. So all of the Ivanas and Flo's and Icies, more of my favorite names from that early to mid 20th century Puckett list, would go on to create names with similar flair and creativity. And sometimes, did those names go too far?
What is her name? What is her name?
It's Roshandia, Tonishan, Vision, Keishan, Simon, Drew, Shalinda, Shirkane, Ronquel, Ninja, Shamika, Shanet, Tamika, Shawahini, Bianca, Kani, Satsan, Janish, Marine, Kunsari, Kanisha, Devon, Yvonne, Latani, Sivante, Pranki, Salaviva, Zamfisa, Jesslyn, Sajave, Loya, Vet, Sparkly, Sandra, Kate, Kati, Vishon, Orly, Vakishawa, Lisa, Nathan, Shots, Mekmone, Lisa. My middle name is Kunyan Scott.
Your middle name?
Okay, so some names went too far, but more often than not, I love a good creative Black name. And I'm so sorry, but my own mother is very iconic for naming me Alexis Jonday, because how else would I be lectual and have intellectual media? Is Jonday a backwards portmanteau of one of her dogs and a mustard? Yes. Is it uniquely mine? Also yes. She almost named me Cleopatra or India, by the way. Can you imagine if this was Cleopatra Media or India Media? No, intellectual media. It was her best friend at the time who suggested Lexus when the cars were really popular. But she said there weren't enough syllables, so she said Alexis. When the nurse, a rude woman in a rush, wrote my name down and presumed to know the spelling, my mother told her, no, it's an E at the front. The nurse had the last laugh though, because she left the acui my mother requested off of Jonday. And that's why people say like Giondi instead of Jonday. I bet you ain't know that's how my name was said. I bet you. Speaking of pronunciations, remember when 9-year-old Quvenzhane Wallis corrected Ricky Gervais for mispronouncing her name and Chrissy Teigen made fun of her?
This is how you say my name. Quvenzhane Wallis.
Yeah, that happened. This reminds me of someone else with a truly iconic and singular Black name, Beyonce Knowles. Miss Tina, born Celestine, christened B after her own maiden French Creole name, Beyonce. Miss Tina's surname was misspelled on the birth certificate by the nurse, making hers different from her siblings, whose surname was Beyonce. Miss Tina explained to Elle magazine that she asked her mother, why didn't you argue and make them correct it? And she said she did the first time and was told, be happy that you're getting a birth certificate certificate, because at one time, black people didn't get birth certificates because it meant that you really didn't exist and you weren't important. This is how important our names are. And by the way, that's how we ended up with Beyonce, which now means beyond others. Over 1,000 Beyoncés alone were born between 2000 and 2004 when Destiny's Child peaked and she first went solo. And having that name is a lot to live up to. I imagine it's like when people name their kids Jesus or something. Like, why would you name me that? I'm scared to live. You know the joke, I'm gonna call him what his mama call him? This only applies for me to Twitter. I'll never call it X. Elon Musk can choke. But when it comes to humans, plenty of people go by chosen names. Think of Bell Hooks, born Gloria Jean Watkins. She chose to write under the name of her great-grandmother and intentionally use lowercase letters because the substance of books, not who she is, was more important. When Anna Mae Bullock became superstar Tina Turner and divorced her abusive husband Ike, all she asked for was the rights to her name. The surname of her abuser became a worldwide brand on her terms. For years, people have incorrectly assumed Whoopi Goldberg, born Karen Elaine Johnson, is Jewish because of the surname she chose. Chosen names are also, of course, important to black gender non-conforming people. Activist Marsha P Johnson, who was given their father's name at birth, chose Johnson from Howard Johnson's restaurant, and P for Pay It No Mind in reference to their gender. Janet Mock chose her name after being inspired by Janet Jackson. Her given surname, like so many others, came from her third great-grandfather, who was owned by a white family named Mock. Laverne Cox's middle name was originally Laverne, a name that appeared on Newbell Niles Puckett's list of unique black names for girls.